Good morning, class. It is Thursday at about 9:30 a.m. and I'm recording this video as a final kind of recap. There's two reasons for this video. The first one is that it serves as a final recap for this week, but then also taking all of the ideas from class and kind of going over them very quickly. I'm not going to make this video super long for you to watch, but just some final thoughts, some closing thoughts for the course before we go into next week and you turn in your final narrative project and all of that. So that's the first reason for this video. And then the second one will be to go over how to submit your project. And I'll also type up an email Sunday night just to kind of bullet point it in case you don't get a chance to watch this full video. But yeah, so we're here, in the final week of class. And this week's lesson and unit, if you did the reading and watched the video, had to do with mumble rap or new wave or whatever you want to call it. The term mumble rap, right, can represent a pejorative. Some individuals argue that we shouldn't use that term. Some musicians, when I say individuals, argue that we shouldn't use that term because it delegitimizes the art that's being produced by artists like Lil Pump, Migos, Future, Kid Buu, a very bizarre individual, but all of those SoundCloud rappers and individuals who are wrapped up in this umbrella of mumble rap or new wave. Is that what a remarkable transformation in the form, right, and function of rap music from the 1970s to the present day. If you were to go from, Gil Scott-Heron's proto-rap song, dealing with issues of poverty, dealing with issues of living in the city, being abandoned by the government, to Lil Pump talking about, whatever he talks about, being a millionaire and having a UFO car, Bugatti, or whatever, is what I'm saying is that the transformation is quite noticeable, where Gil Scott-Heron is talking about the struggles versus Migos or someone talking about, the successes and how that has changed and how rap music, right, has now become a symbol of quote unquote the American dream, right? Coming from something, or coming from nothing, and then, turning yourself into something. Think of Jay-Z, who's not part of the mumble rap thing, and other artists like Dr. Dre. These are, billionaires essentially in terms of how much money they've amassed from just becoming, from musicians to business people and things like that. So it is a very interesting transformation. And then obviously mumble rap plays a role in that, or new wave or whatever you want to call it. So if you haven't read the article that was posted or watched the video about mumble rap, it discusses that. And then I also posted a video of Future, Mask Off, my favorite mumble rap song. But yeah, so we've had a very kind of interesting progression. And I want to think about going all the way back to that first week where we started to talk about the industrialization of the United States. We started to look at how the United States took advantage of its industrial power and became a empire, literally speaking. It acquired territories in the Caribbean, in the Pacific, all over the world after the Spanish-American War, and we saw how the acquisition of these territories had interesting effects on American culture. And then beyond that, not only interesting effects on American culture, this idea of the exotic and all of that, but music played a role in that. And we learned about the popularity of Hawaiian music after Hawaii becomes a territory of the United States, and then how once it becomes a state in the 1950s, we see a replay as history repeating itself, as they say. So we started there, and then we followed this progression from the birth of the American Empire to World War I, to the 1920s, 1930s with the Great Depression. Think of the Dust Bowl blues and all of the songs we've listened to. Then we got to World War II, in the 1950s and 1960s, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So we've come a long way. We've learned about the entirety of the 20th century within this context, within this course's context. And I was thinking about this the other day when I was reading your if you did your extra credit for country music. And even if you're not a history major, which the majority of you are not, and even if you hate history and hated taking this class, which I know some of you have, it is what it is, is that you may not realize it, but the skills that history teaches you have come out in your writing. And when I think back to that first week where we were looking at Hawaiian music, and we were trying to apply this idea of historical causation and thinking how this theme or this form of historical thinking can help to explain the relationship between the Spanish American War and the popularity of Hawaiian music, is that was hard. Some of these personal reflection kind of analyses that you did were hard. Think about the 1920s. Think about all of these, World War I with the album covers, the sheet music covers, and that looking at where you were in January to where you are today is subconsciously your writing has become more confident and your critical thinking skills have improved. So I urge you to think back to those first couple of weeks, and that even if you hated history, which I hope you didn't, I hope you liked the class beyond the skills you got, that you found it interesting and learned something about the content. Obviously, me as the professor, I want that to happen. But even if, let's say you didn't like the class and all of that, is that subconsciously, I want you to think about how your subconscious and how your, all of these things came together, and that you have improved your writing, your critical thinking, and that those skills can be applied to anything, other classes, to your careers, is that being able to communicate effectively through writing, through speaking even, and these different ideas that you've done in this class, think of the debates we had and all of that, has given you the tools. It's like a toolkit. All of these courses that you take at Tiffin University or any university, an English class, a philosophy class, history, the humanities, right, give you a lot of skills that you may not even realize that you've developed. And I've noticed it. I can think back. I'm not insulting you all, but think about that first assignment and how it was hard. And some of you were thinking in your heads, I could see on your faces when you were handwriting them, what the hell am I supposed to say here? What is the correct answer, right? And then you start to learn that this is about interpretation. This is about your own kind of reactions to this, thinking critically, creating an argument, supporting the argument with evidence, and those kinds of things. So we've come a long way. And it's been a fun time. And American music is very interesting in terms of using it to see our past, because in the United States, music speaks so clearly to the past. And when we listen to music from the 1960s or the 1920s, and whenever you're listening to, or Gil Scott-Heron, is that think of music as a way, is that they are the ripples of historical events in water, right? So if you take an oar and you put the oar into the water, you're in a rowboat, and the optical illusion of bending, right, and the representation, and how, although that this is what the oar looks like, but when you put it in the water, it gives the illusion that it's curved or bent, right, that is historical interpretation, and understanding the historical events and how we, through our biases and our present day kind of mindset looking at the past, understand it. But then also when you lift that oar up, right, and then you put it back in the water, it creates ripple effects. And those ripple effects is one example, is the music from the past, right? The sounds of the past speaking to us in the present. So it's very fascinating to think about music and then how we can use that to understand things in American history. And so one final point about music, because let me see, I've already been talking for 8 minutes, and I have to talk about some other things. This is kind of like the final video, so I want some closure to the class, even though we can't have it in person. I miss you all, right? So usually in the last day of class before the finals week, we would have kind of this looking back and thinking about things and having a discussion. And it's unfortunate that we won't get that closure. But I hope you all come visit in the fall or something. If you're still around, swing by office hours, say hi, just to kind of give that closure that we don't get to have in person. But yeah, so thinking about American music and all of this, I just wanted to have one aside, is that because of this pandemic and this quarantine and all of these things, Fiona Apple, she just recently released an album that I can't stop listening to. It's a masterpiece. It will probably become one of the greatest albums of all time when it's ranked. It's already gotten 10 out of 10 perfect scores in some of the reviews. I am not a Fiona Apple fan, but with this album I am. So she just released this new album, and it's amazing. So give it a listen and use some of the skills that you've developed when you're listening to this album, because it deals with issues of gender, sexuality, science, and it deals with all of our sub-themes, race and ethnicity, gender and sexuality, and science and technology. So that's just an aside. A remarkable album came out. So I'm giving her free advertisement, but it's really good. So that's that, right? We've come from the Spanish-American War all the way to mumble rap and Fiona Apple. It's been a long process, but we got through it. I hope, right, that this transition online has been as easy as possible for you in my class. I didn't want to add anything. I wanted to maintain the consistency as if we're just transitioning from, online or from in person to online. But I hope, that it wasn't too stressful and that you look back on this and just remember, all of the things that you've done and how you've gotten through this moment in time, this very stressful time. So next in terms of announcements is that, let me see, it's 10 minutes, so I have 5 minutes left. Is that do your course evaluations, right? The university uses those to gauge, first of all, if we get our contracts renewed and how we can improve our courses. Are we meeting, the course learning outcomes? Are you getting what you need out of these classes? Which, we have met all of the course learning objectives. But this is time for you to reflect on it and evaluate me. I've been evaluating you all semester, so the roles are reversed, if you will. But yeah, so make sure you do those and get those done. And then next is your final project submission. Is that no matter the section, whether you're in section 1 or section 2, is that instead of having your final project due right at the exam slot time, it's due at 11:59 on the 27th. Now, if you were in section 1, you would have had your exam at one time on the 27th, and if you're in section 2, you would have had it. I'm just making this up because I don't have it in front of me, but it was 12:30 to 2:30 or something, both on the 27th. I would say still turn it in as soon as possible, but you have until 11:59. And then again, if you need more time, let me know, and you can take it without penalty. It's just that now that it will be finals week, there's not a lot of leeway we can have because grades are due. Graduation is on the 2nd. So it's not as if with the analysis and responses that you've done, hey, I need an extra couple days because I don't have access, to a laptop or something. Can I have? Yeah, no problem. The only problem is that, when we get to finals week, I can't change the due dates for that because that's the end of the semester. So make sure, you communicate with me as soon as possible if you do need more time, but we will need to get it in by the end of next week. That's why I say just because then I have to grade it. And if you think of it, I have 70 students in this, and you're all writing, over 10 pages of writing. It's a lot. So, I can't have it turned in 1 hour before grades are due because I can't read it thoroughly because I read all of these word for word. All of your assignments I've read word for word, and sometimes I've read them more than once just to make sure I'm getting your points. So make sure you're turning that in, and there will be 3 ways to submit this. First is you will upload it into the assignment folder on Moodle. On the left-hand side of Moodle, you'll see where to upload it. It'll say OA, submission, all of that stuff, because this is an outcomes assessment project. So you have to upload it, first of all, to the assignment folder. Then you need to upload it to TaskStream. And I will be sending over the weekend some instructions on how to do that. I'm sure a lot of you have already done this before. So either way, I'll send out the instructions. So first, you put it in the assignment folder, and it'll say upload here. Second is that you will put it in the TaskStream folder as well. So that's the first 2. And then the third will be if you made a PowerPoint, which you're not required to do, upload it to the group workshop. Now, either way, even if you didn't make a PowerPoint, still upload it to that third location, the workshop area, because that'll allow your classmates to see your research. Since we can't do live presentations and all of that, this is an opportunity for you all to see some of the work that your classmates have done. So it's been about 14 minutes, so I will close out there, and I will send out an email over the weekend. But this has been a great class. It's been fun. I miss you all, and I hope to see some of you in the fall, and just keep up the good work. You all have done great in this class. So if you have any questions, just email me, and we'll go from there. Have a good day.